I'm Kylie Peck, President and CEO of the Greater Watertown North Country Chamber of Commerce, and thank you again for joining us on Coffee Talk today. As we bring in Stephen Jennings, Health Planner for Jefferson County Public Health Service, and Scott Gray, Chairman of Jefferson County Board of Legislators and Control Room Member. It's been really great to bring these gentlemen on every other week as we move into the new phases through the New York State reopening plan, and we are preparing for phase 4, which Scott will go over some of those items, and we'll take a look at a dashboard that the control room is monitoring and making decisions, and bringing things to the state level as we move forward into phase 4. But we will start out this morning with a health update from Steve Jennings. So thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much, Kylie. Good to be with everyone this morning. Just an update on the metrics that we keep here at the department. As of yesterday, there were 7,318 people tested. 87 of those folks were positive. That's from the beginning of the pandemic to today. We have 6 in mandatory isolation as of yesterday, and 1 hospitalized. 80 individuals have recovered. Our negative tests are 7,231. We had 119 folks in precautionary quarantine. All of those folks were awaiting their test results. And we had 14 people in mandatory quarantine. Those people were associated with the positive cases. We are tracking, so hospitalizations now, we've had 11 hospitalizations. The individual that is in now is actually a repeat, unfortunately, had recovered, tested positive again, and is in the hospital. But in total, 11 hospitalizations in our county through this pandemic. We are monitoring as best we can, our local metrics compared to the ones that the state are putting out to monitor the region. We're doing about 200 tests per day in our county on a 7-day rolling average, which is great. Our goal is to be 110 or above. And we're also looking very closely at hospitalizations and deaths. And fortunately, we've had no deaths in our county. We are getting a lot of calls about the new order from the governor about travel. Many of the calls are about essential workers. How are those folks covered if they travel out of state and come back? And we don't have answers to those questions yet. The order has been issued, but the advisory has not from the health department, so we're awaiting that guidance. But within the order regarding essential workers, there does look like there's wiggle room about that. We're just waiting for the Department of Health on that guidance. And we have a lot of calls to return when we get it. Another thing that's happening, and you've probably heard, is, and we think there's a correlation to COVID, is the overdose issue. We had to issue a warning this week because we had 4 overdoses within a 24-hour period. Which is high, and 2 of those overdoses were deaths. So we're monitoring that very closely. We've had 13 confirmed overdose deaths this year, and we have another 9 pending toxicology report. That's extremely high for Jefferson County. And we have a lot of folks working on looking at all the contextuals of that issue and seeing if we can try to stop it. So I think that's pretty much the health report.
Thank you for having me again. It's a pleasure to be here every other week as we go through our opening, and a couple of shout outs to people. As always, our public health department, Steve, Ginger, and Faith, and everybody at public health department are doing a fantastic job through this whole process and ongoing. And they're going to be on point for quite a while. If you talk to anybody, it is going to be probably, we're going to be living with this for a year, maybe 18 months, right, Steve? Just, you can nod, you're on mute.
I don't want to give a thumbs up, but you know what I mean.
Right, exactly. So it's going to be a while. So that's why we're doing what we're doing to make sure that we can live simultaneously with a fully open economy and the virus out there. So another shout out, I see Legislator Monticelli is on also. So I always thank him for attending. And I'd just like to call out WWTI and Dave Males. They have been doing good work for us in terms of doing PSAs. They're producing the PSAs and distributing them throughout the broadcast and media market community. So I do appreciate his effort there. And really, this all comes down to personal responsibility and how people act and how much we're going to, be able to contain this virus and manage this virus and have a vibrant economy at the same time. So good work there, and I appreciate it. So thanks for having me. So you've probably heard that there's some areas that are being held back in phase 4. And I'd like to kind of set the basis of what the concern is. And I think Kylie's going to do a screen share right now to rt.le. That's rt.live. Okay, this is developers. This is from the makers of or developers of Instagram, but they have been doing some a logarithm work here, algorithm work here for our tracking for our virus, and this is where it all comes down. You'll see it is all about the states and the activities, the rate of transmission. I think we're on the latest view right there. Let's go back to the 3-month click all the way back. And you see how dramatically different that is, okay? And now New York, you'll see it probably a little bit left of center, and yep, right there. And that is overall for the state. So, as most people know, the rate of transmission was a lot slower in upstate and the less dense areas than it was in the metro area. So this is an overall measure of the state, but then you can just click right on through. You can go to the 2-month, you can see a little bit, everybody's, so 3-month, everybody's a little bit high. 2-month, everybody drops down a little bit. 1 month, things are starting to move up, right? Everybody gets comfortable at the 2-month mark. So if you click back and forth between the 1 month, you'll see people getting comfortable. And then you go to the 1 month and you see, oh, something's happening. People are getting too relaxed. And this is what we come down to by saying it really is personal responsibility. That shows basically there's too much relaxation out there and people are not abiding. Hold on. My phone is ringing. Okay, and then if you go to last week and the latest are pretty much the same, but there you'll see it's going right off the charts, the rate of transmission. And I think Steve will concur when you have a very contagious communicable disease like this or virus like this. So rate of transmission, it's the virus, one person infects one person. That's a 1-to-1 ratio. And then you go up to a 1.2, and that, I believe by definition, Steve, is a pandemic.
Yes.
Correct?
Yep.
Yes. Yep. So, and you'll see there are several that are up around 1.2 and higher. And so basically what the governor's concerned and everybody that's looking and paying attention to these numbers is that we're seeing a tremendous amount of activity in those states and also a tremendous amount of rate of transmission. And if you go all the way over to the right side, you'll also notice, if you're paying attention to a little bit in the media, the areas that are having problems with their hospital capacity right now. Florida being one, Texas being another, Arizona, I believe, is having problems with hospital capacity. So everything, when you start getting into that type of rate of transmission, everything around you is going to collapse. Hold on, we have a dog that's wants to entertain me right now. Stop it. So, so then, you know, you'll see in the green right now, we're doing well, but we're watching everything else that's happened and all the movement that's happened around the country. Hence the slowdown for phase 4. You know, I will tell you right now, the governor is concerned firsthand about having to do a retraction. You know, he's concerned about having to do a retraction going forward into what we've opened thus far. So it is best, in talking with some of the state folks and some of the people from the governor's office, it is best to put a hold on some of the higher risk activities right now in the phase 4 setting, and to see, and basically they're going through some guidance reviews right now to ensure that there's some safety built into those and make sure. But that is going to be, you know, high concern going forward. And that is going to be whether we start having to do a retraction or we, you know, there's not much more to slow down in terms of, you know, there's gatherings and things like that, which have been increased, but that's going to be a reason for concern going forward. So, having said that, you know, the large indoor settings are a major concern for a variety of reasons. Just the contact coming in the large gatherings that are taking place. And there's a lot of concern over HVAC systems right now. That's been ongoing for a while, and it's just starting to surface out in the public, but it's been a concern for quite some time now. So I think some of you may have heard Dr. Fauci say, if you can avoid a large gathering, you should do so. And that is all of everything what we're doing right now, is trying to avoid those type of mass gatherings, mass people settings, and especially the indoor settings. They're the ones that are indoor, have always been a higher risk situation with a large amount of people. So that continues to be the concern. It will be ones going forward. So phase 4 is open tomorrow, and we'll back up to the travel because that's a concern, and I think Steve's elevating that at the Department of Health level. We've raised that concern, elevated that concern with the governor's staff yesterday. And that is, you know, if somebody leaves here to go on vacation for a week vacation, going to one of those hot spots, it becomes a 3-week vacation for them. So, but there's a concern that if they were classified or considered essential worker prior to leaving, what their status is when they return. So I note Steve was looking for an answer for DOH, and we're also asked that same question yesterday with the executive staff. So we expect some sort of guidance on that today, tomorrow, or whatnot. So, so that's a concern going forward. So what do we have in phase 4? Phase 4 is basically, we have, yep, there we go. Some higher education, which that came out about a week ago. And then we have low risk outdoor arts and entertainment, and then also low risk indoor arts and entertainment. So basically just low risk arts and entertainment and media. So we have the capacity for a lot of indoor activities have been increased ever so slightly. Churches, religious gatherings have gone from 25% to 33%. A lot of the indoor arts and activities are recommended at I'm not sure if they're at 33%. Outdoor activities they're 25% still as we open those. The outdoor activities are recommended at 33% of, so you should keep your grounds normally, whatever your normal capacity is, to about a third of what the capacity, what you normally see in there. and just, practice some safe measures there. So we expected a little bit more in phase 4, but that's going to have to wait. So for further guidance from the state. What else do we have? Oh, sports and rec. I want to go over the statewide guidelines. Yep, there you go. And then you go all the way down to the bottom, and there is racetracks. That's an item I'll talk about in a little bit. That's a hot issue right now. Sports and recreation. If you click on that, the summary. So there's higher risk sports, and you'll see what the description of those sports are, and then what the categories of the sports are, and then all the way over is what type of play is allowed. It's got a check mark, so like for instance, football, we had Red Black last week, discussions with them, and I think Carthage Revolution, individual and distant group training activities, and organized low impact group training, but there's no competitive games whatsoever. There's no competitive practices or anything along that line. So that basically, I think they've not canceled their season. They probably will be canceling it. So, and then there's moderate sports activities, and then there's lower risk activities. There are some low risk sports already permitted, but all of these sports, and then you'll see how those activities are played in the far right column. All of these activities open after on July 6th. So July 6th or after, these activities can ramp up. So if you have kids in little league sports and things like that, little league baseball, that will be they'll be active July 6th for the summer season. So. So we have that, and then so items. I just want to tell you some items that we're tracking in our control room. Let me go through some issues here. We have so malls. Obviously, we've been trying to help the malls get open. The mall here, and we're working with Pyramid in general, Onondaga, executive. McMahon and Pacente out of Oneida and myself drafted a letter to try to get the malls open, and we're still working with them, to move that forward. We are tracking in our control room right now. Some of the issues specific that Jefferson County is specifically tracking is what happens, what is our responsibility if we have a business that has a COVID or case or two, positive case or two tracked back to. You will notice that, I don't know if it's last time I was on or not, but Oswego had a major case down there in an apple slicing plant, I believe it was. And I think there was 34 cases that came out of that. And I was with the ag commissioner last week, and he basically just said it wasn't a pretty process. So he goes, they went in and they had to clear out the whole staff. They had to quarantine the whole staff that wasn't positive. They had to quarantine the remaining staff, and they had to do a very deep clean, very expensive deep clean of the whole plant. So you want to just read and affirm your guidelines, and you want to follow that as much as possible. I can't stress enough cleanliness and monitoring and screening your staff when they're coming in to prevent that outbreak and being associated with your business. So we're working on that. What's the possibility? What's our requirements? What's our responsibility if we have a business that's some positive cases are tracked back to in terms of public health? Do we have to issue any sort of public health orders for closures or whatnot? So compliance issues. We continue to deal with compliance issues every day. Saw the story in the paper last week that, through the New York Pause, we get a tremendous amount of complaints every day. Whether it's staff, we get a certain amount of businesses that are being reported where staff's not wearing masks. So we get constant complaints on that. We get complaints on a lot of customers not wearing masks, but there's not, that's a choice of a business to allow people in or not. And that's what the executive order regarding mask really stated, is that they have the choice to deny service, but business doesn't have to make it mandatory. We wish they did, but they don't have to make it mandatory. So we are closing in on statewide. I will tell you that right now, one egregious large retail operation, and who is constantly is a constant source of complaints. And we're working through the Department of Labor and the executive office to try to get some compliance with them. They're consistently been a problem, and right from their corporate office down, they just have a "we don't care" attitude. And frankly, that's not in our best interest. It's not in anybody's best interest. It's not in the interest of public health. And we have to have a operation like that, and a mentality of a business like that is going to result in other businesses being closed, and we're not going to let that happen. And so if we have to get tough with one business in order to keep other businesses open, that's what we need to do. And we elevated that issue up yesterday because it's constant. I've been on the phone with their corporate headquarters, and basically they're just kind of a brush off. So we'll see if they want to brush the governor off. See, cooling location. I know that that's another area that came up this week, and given the situation with the indoor settings and the HVAC systems, I know Watertown wanted to do a cooling location during their heat wave. That is going to be skeptical whether that's happening, but I'll just let you know we're tracking that. Housing complexes, the senior citizen housing complexing, there's no visitor restriction at the state level for that or at the local level for that. So that was one of the areas that we're tracking. Bowling type sport is not listed yet anywhere. We're tracking virtual arraignments with the judicial system. And daycare capacity, that is probably an area that may concern some of you. As we get more businesses open, daycare is limited to 10 people in a setting, and we're trying to get a slight adjustment. That was a setting that was set at the beginning of all of this and has not been updated as procedures and guidance have come online in order to do things safely or more safely. So we're trying to get that updated. So as the workforce begins to return back to their place of business, there's more of a need for daycare services. There's always been a need for them through this whole process, but that need is increasing now. And so we're trying to get some adjustment there. Racetracks, we've got a couple of racetracks that are opening around the state that are out of compliance, and we're just trying to bring some continuity and some consistency to state policy. We struggle with that each and every day, the consistency and application of state policy. And I constantly every day hear somebody list one area and then they list another area, one that's maybe open fully and one that's not open fully. And we understand that there's a dichotomy out there, and it's very difficult to understand. And we're trying to, we work every day to try to bring some consistency of policy to the whole situation. So it can be difficult. So hold on here. Okay, what else we got? And I think, and then distribution. Yes, so we have, lest I forget on that one, a big thank you to Kylie and her team and all the volunteers, the team at the Greater Watertown North Country Chamber of Commerce, the IDA, and all the volunteers that showed up. Was it a week ago, Kylie? I think it was. We had a distribution of hand sanitizer for all the businesses that are opening. And I believe we success, and there's some people that are expressing some interest in there. So we're going to, that was kind of done in a very flash moment within a few days. So Kylie really pulled it off really well. And in a short amount of time, we are going to take a little bit more time, and we'll prep for possibly a second one if I'm not preempting Kylie's announcement here. So, but we have hand sanitizer available for businesses. We have a limited amount of no-touch thermometers that I think will be available, and we have 18,000 cloth masks coming in. So we'll probably talk about, and then we have test kits coming in, but you folks don't need test kits. So we have 1,000, Steve, just so you know, 1,000 more coming in. So there you go. Testing is the key, right? Testing, tracking the positives, tracing.
It's all we got at the moment.
That's right. So the more we can test, the more we can track, the more we can isolate, the more we contact trace, the more we quarantine, and the safer you all are in terms of this whole process. And the more people really that are isolated and quarantined out of precaution, is the safer that the rest of the environment is for everybody else to move around, and businesses to open and continue to operate. So if those numbers go up, don't be alarmed. That's not a bad thing. I think Steve would agree that it's okay. It's when we get the positive cases going up, that's when we want to be alarmed, and the rate of transmission going up. So we think we'll, if Kylie can organize another distribution of that, I will leave it to her. We do have 2,000, I will call this one out. We do have 2,000 masks that are made from athletic jersey material, and they're actually commissioned, produced and commissioned by the New York Mets and the New York Yankees, and they are for youth sports. So we're going to figure out a means to distribute those to youth sports around the county. And I know youth sports could be different depending upon what area of the county. Some areas might be baseball, Little League baseball. Some areas might be soccer. Some areas might be lacrosse if it's permissible. So it may vary from place to place, but we'll try to get those as widely distributed throughout the county to the young folks in sports, so they can get about their summer without any problem. So with that, I am all available for questions. So isn't Steve.
Yes, absolutely. And I will let everyone know we are organizing an additional distribution. I'm proud to say that we did give hand sanitizer to 250 businesses last Monday. And I've gotten a number of inquiries since then through email and social media and voicemails of people looking to get some of that weren't able to come. So I think it's really great that the state released all of those supplies to the counties. And it was a really fantastic opportunity for us to not only get the product to the businesses, but it was a great opportunity to touch base with businesses in a 4-hour period. To talk to 250 business representatives is really fantastic for all of us that were down there that day, helping to distribute those products. So we do have some questions. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
Kelly, yep. Can I just have you pull up a screen share? I just received it from one of the governor's staff. Coronavirus.health.ny.gov.
Coronavirus.
Oh, yeah.
All
right. I think we can get there. Yep. Coronavirus.health.ny.gov.
All right.
Let's see.
Just share that quick.
There we go. Travel advisory just posted. So what you need to know. There is, she just.
There's that piece.
There's an overview, the guidance, there's the restricted states, there's the guidance for travel. There's the exception for essential workers, okay, which is what we're just talking about. So I don't know. She just sent me the link directly. So there's short term, long term. I just got it. So I don't even know if you can find it in there. Learn more, maybe. I don't know.
Oh,
She sent me the direct link.
that's it. There
There you go. There we go.
Learn more, and
Okay.
then, yeah.
Yep. So this is just hot off the press. So as we speak, there was an email from the governor's staff. So there you go. So,
Great.
yep.
We'll put that
Okay.
in chat so people can check that
Sure.
out.
Yep.
All right, there's the link to that travel advisory. So if you want to take a look at that, you can. So we do have some questions coming in. So I have one specific to the social gatherings. So that's supposed to be increasing from 25 to 50 with phase 4. Is that specifically for indoor or outdoor or both? Is there any?
Both.
It's for both.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a good question, because then let me clarify that too while we have that. So that is an important point that I forgot. So essential gatherings have increased from 25 to 50 people. Okay, and restaurants are at 50% capacity. Two different things. Okay, there's frequently questions. I got a restaurant that holds 200 people. Can I have an event there for 100 people? The answer is no. So it is different. Capacity at 50% is people coming in, dining, and leaving, right? Coming in with their family, coming in with whatever, their significant other, whatever, coming in, dining, and leaving. It is not an event, okay? It is an event for the couple or for the person or whoever, for the family, but it is not an event in totality. So that is permissible. Restaurants can operate at 50%. That doesn't translate into a gathering at the facility for 50% of the capacity. So I want to make sure that that's clear. So gatherings are inside or outside to be limited to 50 people.
All right, thank you. So that would be, that would apply to like a wedding. You can have 50 people come to your wedding, but you can't have.
Yeah, that's one of the items.
Capacity.
Yeah, that's one of the items that we're tracking in the state, in the region wide, and that is weddings for later on in the summer in some guidance. And there's just no way really right now to say what August will look like, because I'll take you right back to RT.live. It's all right there. It's all how that starts to move. And if those all go red, we're going to be shut down, or we're going to be held in place, or we're even possibly a retraction coming. So this is really a tenuous situation. I think Steve would agree. It's probably really a week to week situation right now. Am I incorrect, Steve?
No, you're right on. Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, and I'm going to stay on that kind of gathering piece of things, because I think there was some information out there that as of June 26th, schools could do graduations with up to 150 people.
Yes.
So, but that's only specific to graduations and nothing else. The only reason I'm asking is because I know we have a lot of organizations that participate in these that rely on their in-person fundraising opportunities. And I want to make sure we're being very clear on what is allowed and what is not allowed.
Yeah. Yep. They're just specific to graduations. And it was, so the intent there was, so first of all, the schools would be a small class to begin with. So the schools would be able to manage a smaller class and keep them separated. And there would be a small amount of family, and they would be able to be kept in very small settings, very nuclear settings with just the nuclear family, and not, a massive auditorium full of people. So that's really the rationale behind that. So yes, correct.
Great. Thanks. I wanted to make sure we were making that clear, that it's not for any type of event. Is there any update on nursing home visitation?
Steve may have that. Yes, it's being updated, and so is in hospital visitation. Steve, do you have any more?
It's being updated. I think that I think there's some visitation allowed, that it's controlled.
Yes,
We're
right.
awaiting guidance, more guidance on it.
Yes. Yeah, that's very shortly. If
Okay. Have the individual facilities themselves put out some guidance recently? I feel like I've seen River Hospital and Samaritan maybe give just an update on where they are.
Oh, I think they're all providing guidance to their families.
Yep. Best to call ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's
Because even, go ahead.
it's
Steve.
controlled I call it controlled visitation, case by case basis. They're very careful. You don't want COVID to come into that facility.
Exactly.
And our facilities have been very good about it.
Right. So even if there's statewide guidance that's out there, there could be more restrictive guidance by a facility. So you, regardless of what you hear statewide, you've got to call ahead before you go visit anybody in a hospital or a nursing home. And chances are, if you're not immediate family, I would just save the call. So you know, unless you're a caretaker of some sort. But we had a case where somebody contacted me, and it was a housing complex, and I think I mentioned that they don't have any of their common areas open, and they're not permitting any visitors. That is strictly a policy decision on the local housing board. Let me just say that it's their board that a choice that they've made to make it more restrictive. You know, I will tell you, and I believe Steve will concur again, but we're concerned about really contact tracing is a huge issue for us, because I've told you before, the more this opens up, you know, when we were back in lockdown, or not lockdown, that's a bad word, shelter in place. When we were back in shelter in place, you know, it would be easy for any one of you to recall your 14, or easier for any one of you to recall your 14-day history. As we have opened this up more, so not only do just the complexities of the whole economy running and everything with the backdrop of this virus, but individually, I would challenge anybody to recall their 14-day history, you know, in terms of what they've done and who they talked to. And so it is very difficult process, and that will lead to an increase in the transmission rate, not being able to successfully do that job. So if you have businesses, you know, and if somehow you can track, you know, or just keep a log of who's coming in, going in your business, that is certainly beneficial to us. You know, if somebody can, you know, if we have something that's tracked back and says, well, you know, I was at the farmer's market, we can, you know, identify a log of people that were there, and we can just go through and do some surveillance work on them, right, Steve?
Right.
Surveillance work. When I say that, it doesn't matter. It's not like undercover work. It's talking about talking to people and asking them about their symptoms and their conditions and stuff like that. I'm talking about surveillance of the virus, not surveillance of the people.
Right.
So that's
right. And the other thing is, we've had an increase in cases in the last couple of weeks, where I think it's a case or two a day. And so that is increasing our contact tracing. We have not had a case yet where we've had to notify a business or a public entity that they should be warning, or we're going to have to try to contact employees or vendors or customers. That other counties have had those types of incidents, but if we have to do that, we're going to have to do it. And it could be, it's going to be the farmer's market.
Right. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
Yes, let's not get it traced back to the market.
Well, I wasn't saying just specifically. So when I talk about, like, you know, locking things down, I'm talking about locking the virus down. I'm not talking about individual people and stuff, you know, which is somewhat individual people, but, you know, surveillance, when we talk about surveillance testing is just basically a style of testing in order to, you know, track the virus. We're tracking the virus more than anything. So.
Sure, absolutely.
Yep. Go ahead.
If there's no other questions, Steve and Scott, do you have parting words before we close up today?
I had neglected to mention that we are using a new tracking system called ComCare that is in addition to the state systems that have been in place for years. And that program has had its challenges, and there's been press coverage about that, and some counties want to bail. We are not one of those counties. We are working through the issues with it, and it is getting better all the time. The beauty of that system is, and unlike anything we've ever had before, is we're going to be able to have we're inputting the contacts into a database, and we're going to be able to see better where they are and how they're, how they're related to the disease transmission or the potential of disease transmission. So that is very active here in our community right now, and our contacts are loaded into it, and we're gonna keep using it, and that should help us control things.
So let me just pause for a minute, because when he says see where they are, that doesn't mean we're sitting there in the, watching you on a computer screen. It means location, right, Steve?
Well, see where it's about the disease.
Right. Yeah.
All about the
disease. It's about seeing where the concentration, if there's a concentration of cases or contacts in a certain area, correct?
And the potential for trouble, and
yes,
getting ahead of that if we possibly can.
Yeah.
Because we don't, and I know Chairman Gray will agree, we do not want to go backwards. We do not want to, we want things to stay open, but everybody has a part to play. And most basically it's masking in public, and then hygiene, of course.
Yes. So if you think the shutdown was onerous, and if you think the opening process was complicated and frustrating, you wait till you see a retraction. It will be anything but pretty. So it's all about personal responsibility. So I don't know if Steve, if you have any other comments to offer, but I mean, for myself personally, I would ask everybody that it's about your personal responsibility, number one, in terms of the virus, and just to do your part and to encourage people near you to do their part as well, which is wear a face mask and things like that. If they're in, manage your work environment correctly is going to be really key going forward. And then I would just like to speak briefly on the overdose situation. That is a huge, huge concern for us right now. That coincides with, with the virus. And there's anecdotally, we can tell you there's a lot of things. There's a confluence of factors that are coming into play here that we are tracking and we're trying to get information on. But, it's frankly, it's part of the stimulus package that was put out there for individuals. When you add money to a system like that, to that underground system, it fuels, that's what fuels that's the underground economy. And that's what fuels that whole system. And it is, so either you got mid-level people who are dealers. I've been on the phone with the drug task force. You got mid-level people who have the ability to deal a little bit more. So they're running off and they're getting a stash and they're coming back and they're selling it. And, so they're trying to be players in the market. And then you have buyers who have money. And you have a criminal justice system right now that frankly returns people to the street very quickly. So, the drug task force is very frustrated because they will pick up somebody and within hours they see them back on the street. So we have a whole confluence of issues that are going on, not the least of which is the virus and has caused some anxiety out there and things like that. So that is a huge concern for us in this community. I know I talked to Steve last week and Christina Mills, our DA. I was on with a meeting yesterday with a lot of the providers, the agencies that are in the area. And, my goal is to get a package of information together in terms of what is happening in our community, and get that to the leaders at in the state level, from the governor to both the Senate minority and majority leaders and the Assembly Speaker and minority leader. So to let them know, the grave concerns that we have for what this is happening. And I think, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, there's still 9 toxicology reports that are still out, Steve?
That's correct.
That are outstanding. So it was just numbers that we have never seen before,
Right.
that are concerning. And, whatever we need to do to make this community safer and safer for the younger people, we will do it. Right, Steve?
Yeah. And we also, our Drug-Free Communities Task Force, which I chair for the county, we have met with Assemblyman Walczak and Senator Ritchie this week. And so, Chairman Gray, we can give you, we should be plugging into whatever you're doing. We can give you all the data you need for that effort. And to make the appeal that, particularly on the bail reform, because that's a New York State controlled aspect, something needs to be done. Because jail used to be a stopgap for people that we could transition them into treatment services, and that's gone. And of the 13 confirmed deaths we have, 12 are males, and the average age is 33. And so we've discussed with the district attorney and Sheriff O'Neill, is there a correlation? Because mostly men and women go to jail too, but mostly men. So we're looking at every angle of it and trying to work locally and then at the state policy level as well.
Yep. There's there's fentanyl and carfentanil, right?
Right.
Fentanyl is highly potent. Carfentanil is extremely impotent, and that is most of these drugs. What's happening is, suspect data proves it. Most of these drugs are being laced with that, and so they're getting unsuspecting users. But we've had 21 overdoses of heroin, correct, right, Steve? And 16 are non-fatal, 5 have been fatal, right? That's just of heroin. Then there's heroin, coke, and that's what's shown up there, right? And then there's fentanyl prescriptions, there is meth and molly and oxycodone. So there's
we've had marijuana presence in the toxicology
laced
before the deaths. So I mean, it could be cut into anything, and that's what we're warning the public about.
Right. Yep. And a lot of it is some of this higher potency stuff is not being touched by Narcan. It just, you can't dose enough Narcan in people. So I do have the June overdose summary that came out of the crime lab. It's staggering what you'll see. So do your part. If people need help, we'll get help to them. So.
Yeah, that's extremely concerning information, as if the current situation with the pandemic isn't bad enough. Layering that on top is certainly concerning across the board. I do see there have been a handful of questions asking about antibody testing before we wrap up. Are they still doing that, and has that been deemed effective in any way?
So that's under study. The state is doing random testing. I believe they've done 2 rounds outs of it around the state, or they've been in Jefferson County twice. We are never informed when they hear it. They really want it random. They don't want it publicized. They want to just set up and just whoever presents to really see if they don't want all the positive cases showing up with these things to be antibody tested. The CDC is not recommending antibody testing in any state's decision making. There's still a lot of unknowns with it. There's a lot of false positives with the antibody testing. And it hasn't borne out to show what we would call herd immunity or a level that was expected, which is, they thought many people would have the antibodies in their system. And the last study I saw, it was really even with about the positive cases versus non-positive cases. So it's still being studied. The state is still working on it, and they're still going to do random testing as far as I know. But I think it's a test that needs to be refined for better efficacy. And so we'll wait and hear. But you can get antibody tested in our community. I know some of the urgent care centers are doing it. I believe WellNow is doing it. Mm-hmm. So it's up to you. I don't know if insurance will cover it though.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We are at our 1 hour time slot for today. Thank you to Scott and Steve for joining us this morning. Please, everyone, I think the overall message when we're going through these conversations is please be responsible. Make sure you're talking to people, and encouraging them to stay using the face masks and, to keep our community healthy and continue to open up. And as far as the issue with the overdose situation, if you know of anybody that needs some help, reach out. There's a lot of resources available. Visit the public health website. You can get information there on who to contact. So it's concerning, but if we work together as a community, we can certainly make an impact if we're doing it together on both fronts. So let's make sure we're being responsible for each other, for our community, and for our friends and family and community. So thanks everyone for joining us today. We will hopefully see a number of you next week. Have a great one.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks so much.